Welcome to today's HealthLine Innovator webinar from the American Association of Kidney Patients, titled The Gut Kidney Heart Connection: What Patients Can Do Beyond Medical Treatment. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jerome Bailey, AAKP's Director of Patient Engagement and Advocacy, and I'm pleased to lead today's webinar. AAKP launched our Innovator webinar series as an extension of our normal HealthLine webinar programming. As the nation's oldest and largest patient-led kidney organization, AAKP is proud to host this Innovator webinar for the growing global community of patient consumers and families, clinicians, researchers, and policymakers seeking the latest advances in kidney care. AAKP is a steadfast champion of innovation that challenges the status quo and advances patient choice, outcomes, and quality of life. While this activity is an approved educational and informational webinar containing branded content, AAKP does not endorse specific commercial entities or products. AAKP's HealthLine and HealthLine Innovative webinars fall under our Center for Patient Research and Education. We believe patient and care partner education is an integral part of an individual's treatment, and to that end, AAKP is a champion for full patient care choice, the protection of the patient-doctor relationship, and the elimination of artificial barriers and government determinants of health that impede patient care and access to available treatment options. Through our initiatives, we aim to make sure patients have a central voice in research and innovation. By leveraging lived experiences and unique insights from the kidney community, we help drive meaningful advancements across the entire product development lifecycle, from clinical trials and regulatory processes to payment decisions. As medical science progresses with personalized medicine, cutting-edge technologies, and novel treatments, the potential for better outcomes in kidney care has never been greater. Today's topic, the connection between the gut, kidney, and heart, touches many parts of daily life. It is an area where science keeps evolving and where patients often have questions about what's within their control. Through AAKP's Center for Patient Research and Education, we conducted an independent flash survey to get insights into people's understanding of probiotics and the gut-heart-kidney connection. We received a significant number of people who took part in this survey. Respondents including chronic kidney disease patients, dialysis patients, and transplant recipients. When we asked how familiar respondents were with this topic, 36% said they were not familiar at all. Another 33% said they were somewhat familiar, and 25% said they had heard about it but were not really sure what it means. That tells us there's interest and opportunities for more education. We then asked whether people knew before taking this survey that gut health and diet could influence kidney and heart disease. About 45% said yes, which is encouraging. 26% said somewhat, but 31% said no. So, while awareness is growing, a meaningful number of patients are still not getting this information early or clearly enough. Next, we wanted to understand what people are actually doing day to day to manage their kidney heart health. About 90% of respondents said they've made changes to their diet or lifestyle to help manage their condition. That's a powerful message. It shows patients are engaged and motivated. Look at what those changes were. 88% said they reduced their sodium intake. 76% said they adjusted their protein intake, and more than half said they monitor phosphorus or potassium and try to stay physically active when possible. To me, this really speaks volumes. Patients are not sitting back. They're actively trying to take control of their health in the best ways they know how. At the same time, confidence levels are mixed. When we ask how confident people feel about knowing which foods or habits actually support kidney and heart health, a little more than 80% said they were very confident or somewhat confident, but nearly 20% said they were not very confident or not confident at all. That uncertainty matters because it means some people are making changes without being sure they're the right ones. We also asked, what makes these changes difficult? And the responses won't surprise anyone living with kidney disease. Medical restrictions were the top barrier at 39%, including limits around potassium, phosphorus, and fluid. Taste and food preferences came in at 35%, and 33% cited lack of clear information, time, or energy. This is real life, and it's exactly why one size fits all advice doesn't work. Now let's talk about probiotics. When asked about probiotic use, 45% said they have never used them. 29% said they've used them in the past, and 20% said they currently use probiotics. So there's curiosity, but also hesitation. And finally, among those who had tried probiotics, experiences varied. 11% said they noticed a benefit, 13% said they somewhat noticed a benefit, and 25% said they did not notice a benefit or were not sure. That tells us patients are willing to explore options, but they need clearer guidance and better conversations with their care team. Overall, what stood out to me in these results is this. Patients want practical, trustworthy information. They want to understand what's within their control, and they want to support making choices that fits their lives, not just a list of rules. That's why today's conversation matters so much. It helps connect patient experience with science and clinical insight in ways that's meaningful. We are fortunate to have Dr. Richard Johnson with us today to break this down. Dr. Johnson is a professor of medicine at the University of Colorado, an internationally recognized clinician scientist, and a leading voice in kidney research. He is the founding editor of Comprehensive Clinical Nephrology, one of the most widely used textbooks in the field, and has authored more than 800 academic papers. His groundbreaking research explores the connection between sugar, especially fructose, uric acid, obesity, and diabetes. He's also the author of several books, including his most recent, Nature Wants Us to Be Fat, which explores why our bodies store fat and what we can do about it. We're grateful to have him here today, so let's turn it over to Dr. Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you, Jerome. Thank you for the very, very nice introduction. And yes, I'm a kidney specialist. I've spent my whole life basically studying kidney disease. And I am so grateful to be able to speak to you today because you guys are, the reason why I became a kidney specialist. This is my title of my talk. I am a consultant for Kibo, which is a company that makes a very good probiotic. And I became a consultant because I actually did studies and became a believer in the product. But I am a consultant, so keep that in mind. I really mean that I spent my career studying kidney disease, and it began when I was a medical student at the University of Minnesota, and I ended up doing a rotation, spending several months at a hospital in London, where unfortunately in those days they couldn't offer dialysis to everybody. One of my first patients was a older woman who was dying of kidney failure. There was no treatment, so I would visit her every day, and I became her friend and talked to her, and I watched her, slowly wither away, and I became very convinced that this is one of the most important diseases to attack. So when I went for my residency, I ended up at the University of Washington in Seattle, and I did my residency learning how to take care of patients. And it's just a beautiful city. It has the Space Needle, and it was home to the World's Fair in the early 60s, and I was there in the late 70s. This is actually where dialysis was initiated. A guy named Belding Scribner, who was this fantastic physician who decided that people shouldn't die from chronic kidney disease, and that we should develop dialysis therapies that could be done throughout the world with, dialysis units that people could go to. And he actually dialyzed the first patient with chronic dialysis in 1962 named Clyde Shields. He had passed away by the Clyde Shields had passed away by the time I came on, but I actually met the patient, the second patient to ever go on dialysis. And I still was thinking so hard about kidney disease that I decided to make it my career. Valding Scribner, the guy who started dialysis, hired me as the last fellow that he had before he retired. I decided I wanted to be a good clinician and be, really good at taking care of patients. So I spent a lot of time in the hospital and in the outpatient clinic. And I ended up editing this big textbook, which has turned out to be a very popular book, as Jerome mentioned. But I also got interested in research because I was very interested in what might cause kidney failure and how we could stop it. And over the years, I've seen an incredible progress in the management of kidney disease. In 1980, kidney function shown in that blue line just tended to decrease at a steady rate in patients with chronic kidney disease. It was like a clock. We could plot it out and predict about when a patient would need dialysis, and that was when I started in the early 80s. So you'd see a patient, you'd measure their creatinine, which is a measure of kidney function, and if you looked at two different time points, you could calculate how long they would be healthy or how long it would take before they would need dialysis. But you can see that since 1980, that decline has been really improved. It's been flattened, and these days, people are talking about preventing kidney function from worsening. The goal is to prevent kidney disease from getting worse, and soon, at some point, it will be how to improve kidney function. What can we do to improve kidney function, not just slow its progression? And the magic formula turned out to be a lot of medications to control the blood pressure. And many people are diabetic, so you need to control the blood glucose and give blood pressure medicines. And now there's all these new drugs that have come forward. And we have made a huge impact on kidney disease. In the last 5-10 years, we've got these new therapies where we can slow the progression. We can keep people from progressing to kidney failure, at least to a fairly good extent. I mean, some people will still progress for sure, but we are having an impact. But there's this is one of the great examples. There are these drugs called SGLT2 inhibitors. They just came out in the last few years. Their names, you may know names like empagliflozin or Jardiance and other ones. But these drugs can reduce the risk for developing cardiovascular death, heart attacks, and slow kidney progression in people with chronic kidney disease. This is amazing, but you see it takes some time to do that. Over a 5-year period, we're reducing, by 50%, 40%, the number of people who are dying from heart disease and kidney disease. But, it would be great if we could develop other ways to slow kidney disease that isn't so costly, that doesn't involve taking these powerful medicines that can have significant side effects. And so the dream is to figure out what kind of lifestyle changes we can do to either complement or even replace such therapies. I can't emphasize how important diet is. And what we knew that salt was always bad in the patient with chronic kidney disease. Large amounts of salt can raise blood pressure. And we know that diets super high in protein can be a risk factor. But what we've been learning about in the last decade is that actually we're eating too many carbs as well and too much sugar. And we need to restrict our sugar. And we need to sleep well. And we need to stay well hydrated and drink plenty of water. And we need to exercise and be active. But there was another area, and that is that the gut. What does the gut have to do with kidney disease? So let's talk about the gut for a moment. I mean, the gut contains bacteria, and the bacteria, many different types of bacteria that live in our gut. We call that the microbiome because it's basically we have millions of little bacteria living inside of us. Now, these bacteria can produce good things and bad things. And what we are finding out is that that makes a difference. When people's bacteria are making good things, it kind of blocks inflammation. It makes us feel better, gives us, it can help the health. And when people are sick, oftentimes the gut microbiome also gets sick and it gets replaced by bacteria that are producing things that are hurting us. So it's like an area that people haven't studied very well, especially when it comes to kidney disease. But it could be a nice target for treatment because of its effects on inflammation and other organs. It turns out that people with chronic kidney disease generally do not have a healthy gut. And when the bacteria are measured, like in a stool sample, they can see that in patients with chronic kidney disease, often there are unhealthy bacteria in the gut. These ones that are all kind of reddish orange, and they can produce toxins, and they can make the gut leaky, so that things can get across the gut and into the blood that normally wouldn't get there. People who have in the healthy population, there are people have these other bacteria that are very common in their gut that are gone in patients with chronic kidney disease. And one of the most important one is called lactobacillus in green. One of the problems with bad bacteria is that they can cause inflammation in the lining of the intestines. So what you're looking at here is a cross section of the small intestine, for example, where you see these cells that are used to absorb food. And when you eat, these cells absorb the nutrients, process them, get them into the liver. And this is how we get energy from the food we eat. There's this mechanism where our enzymes in the gut break the food down and then we absorb them. But interestingly, these cells that absorb the nutrients are bonded to each other with these things called tight junctions, which are basically hinges that hinge the cells together. And when those hinges break, like from a bad bacteria in the gut, it leads to a way for bad things to get into the blood that normally don't get there. So what they discovered was that patients with kidney disease are often making toxins in their gut that are getting across this barrier, what we call leaky gut, and into the blood. And then it can cause inflammation, which can increase the risk for heart disease and kidney disease. CKD, or chronic kidney disease, is associated with an unhealthy gut. Not everybody has an unhealthy gut, but many people do. And it's associated with a reduction in good bacteria, like lactobacillus, an increase in bad bacteria, and the accumulation of toxins. And some of these are listed below, like uric acid, indoxyl sulfate, p-cresyl sulfate, and TMAO. And people with chronic kidney disease have higher levels of these in their blood because these are being made in the gut and absorbed into the blood where they're doing bad things. Years ago, when I would come to the kidney meetings, I would meet with a microbiologist. There was a microbiologist whose name was Rangan. He always came to the meetings, and he had a dream to make a probiotic that could help kidney disease. And his idea was to get a bacteria that, or like a probiotic is basically a way to get bacteria into you, and that he would give good bacteria to help replace the bad bacteria and to generate good products that were less toxic did not cause inflammation. And also, he got the idea that maybe he could get some bacteria that would actually help degrade the toxins, to actually break them down and degrade them. I thought that was a really interesting idea. So it's almost like a type of dialysis. If you put in bacteria that can remove some of the toxins, they can help the kidneys when the kidneys are failing. There was a reason behind this, and I actually was studying at that time was studying bears, and it turns out that bears, when they hibernate, actually quit urinating for like 8 months. They develop kidney failure in the sense that they have zero kidney function. And of course, creatinine, which is a kidney marker, does go up in their blood. But BUN, which is considered a waste product that the kidney gets rid of, it doesn't go up when they hibernate. Instead, it goes down. So even though these animals are not making any urine, they can control their urea. And they do it because of the bacteria in their gut. So this says that there is a potential way that we could consider to try to help people on dialysis and patients with kidney disease, in which we get the gut to help the kidney make us healthy. So this is what Rangan was trying to do, and he generated a probiotic called Renadil, and he made it to remove toxins. This probiotic has two ways of working. One is it actually blocks the leaky gut by replacing the bad bacteria with good bacteria. And when the gut is no longer leaky, you can't absorb these bad things. You can't absorb the toxins as well. You can't absorb the inflammation is less. So one way is you kind of replace the bad with the good. But the other magic weapon was to help remove some of the toxins in the gut, to remove urea and creatinine and uric acid, and to help in another way. So it's a two types of ways of helping the patient. So I was intrigued. He gave me some probiotic to give to animals, and I don't think I showed pictures of it, but we actually found that it worked in kidney failure in rats. And then I became hooked. I said, okay, well, this probably is a good thing. This is a new treatment. This doesn't require taking a drug. What do we know about it? So he made this Renadil, as I said, and it contains these different bacteria that can actually degrade urea and uric acid and creatinine. So all good. So they began to do clinical trials, and most of these were done, with small numbers of patients. Some were in dialysis, some had chronic kidney disease, and basically all of them showed either tendencies, trends, or even significant effects on kidney health. I'm going to show you the biggest one. Actually, this is one of the first early ones, and you can see that the BUN levels are high in the left panel, and then when the drug is given, which begins with month 1 and 2 and 3, the BUN improves, and the creatinine also improves in the right panel. And then when they stop the probiotic, over time, the BUN and creatinine start going back up. So it's like they helped for while you were on it, but eventually it would come back. But this was just a very little pilot study. And there were quality of life data where they did questionnaires and analyzed the questionnaires. And in general, people tend to like it. And the quality of life tends to go up. Pain levels go down. But this is then they did a study in dialysis patients, and this thing called CRP is a measure of inflammation. The bottom line is that they could see some improvement in inflammation, less inflammation. And that's associated with much better health when you can reduce inflammation, less risk for heart disease, for example. So this was the big study where they took like over 600 patients with chronic kidney disease and what we call stage 4 kidney disease. So that's advanced kidney disease. And they did this thing where it was randomized, open label randomized study. And in this one, they used KT301, which was very similar to Renadil. And what they found in this randomized controlled trial was an improvement in the creatinine over time. The group that got the probiotic had a less significant rise in their creatinine. They were still developing some advancing of kidney disease, but at a much lower rate. And you can show that on the right side of the panel that shows the GFR, which is the measurement most of us use for kidney function. You can see that the controls in blue, really their kidney function dropped. It only decreased slightly in the treatment group. Same thing with BUN. The group that got the probiotic did better. They had a lower BUN. They had another marker of kidney function is cystatin, and it showed an improvement there. A uric acid was also lowered, and protein in the urine was also lowered. I mean, this is generally all positive. Now, the caveat is that these changes are relatively mild. But it was only 6 months study. And that's important because if you look at like drugs like the SGLT2 inhibitors that people are now using to treat kidney disease, if you look on the far left of that left panel, you'll see that there's really no change in kidney function for the first year of the study or so. And yet we're showing some differences even at 6 months. So I think it's fairly similar, actually. So I think that it's very promising. I would say that these probiotics look very, very promising, and especially the one called Renadel, because that's the one that's been tailored to treat patients with kidney disease. So in summary, the gut microbiome has been a bystander all along. It's been there, but no one's really been looking at it. Instead, all of us kidney docs, including me, spent most of our career looking at the kidney and trying to find medicines that could help the kidney disease or to improve the diabetes and hypertension that often drive it. So we've been kidney focused, and I'm proud of being kidney focused. But what we've learned is that it isn't just what's going on in the kidney that affects the kidney. It's what's going on in the person. And what's going on in the person is largely governed by a healthy gut. In turn, the healthy gut is really led by a healthy diet. And so we recognize that lifestyle changes can play a role in causing kidney disease, but we can actually harness it to try to find a way to help kidney disease. And a healthy diet is number one. Drinking water in general is very good. Maybe not in dialysis patients because there's no excretion of water in that case. So you probably have to control your water intake if you're on dialysis. But in general, patients with chronic kidney disease and renal transplant benefit from drinking 4 to 6 glasses, 6 to 8 glasses of water a day. And so there's a lot we can do. But the point of this lecture is to emphasize another baby, which is the gut microbiome. And keeping the gut healthy is another way we can help our kidneys and help our overall health. This talk was sponsored by Kibo, but I'm very happy to work with them because I do believe in this. And my take-home message to you is not to say go out and buy Renadel, et cetera, but for you to consider the idea that probiotics might be beneficial. You might want to talk to your physicians about it, see what their take is on it. But I think you may also want to just try it and see if you feel better on it. If you don't, that's good to know. But if you do, which a lot of people do, it could be a very positive benefit for you. And it looks very promising as helping the kidney function as well. So with that, I thank you very much for inviting me to give this talk. It really is great to speak to the people who actually have the kidney disease. This is why I became a kidney physician, was to help to help battle this important disease, this important condition.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. That was a really wonderful presentation and a helpful look at how these systems connect and what it means for patients day to day. We'll circle back to you shortly for audience questions. Now, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Deborah Miller. Deborah's kidney journey started more than 20 years ago when she was diagnosed with early stage CKD. At the time, she was focused on managing multiple sclerosis, so kidney health wasn't front and center yet. About a decade later, when her GFR began to drop, a referral to a nephrologist helped her make sense of what was going on and make a few important changes, including stepping away from NSAIDs. The cause of her CKD is still unknown, but Deborah focuses on what she can control. She keeps her blood pressure in check, follows a mostly vegetarian diet, and stays active with yoga, walking, and Pilates. She also added Renadil to her routine about 4 years ago. Her GFR has gone up and down over the years, but she's learned that when she balances movement, food, stress, and support, she feels her best. Deborah, we're glad to have you with us today. Let's talk a little bit about your experience.
Thanks, Jerome.
So you told us that you didn't pay much attention to your early CKD diagnosis because you were managing MS. What eventually made you realize you needed to focus more on your kidney health?
I changed primary care doctors about 8 years ago and went with a gerontologist. And with her attention, which was much more focused than my previous doctors, regular lab work every 6 months, and her interpretation of my kidney health and encouragement to pay attention to it, I shifted my focus. And she recommended that I see a nephrologist, which I accepted that referral. And I think between the two of them, I don't think, I know it got my attention. It was the first time I had professionals saying, this is important. You need to pay attention and prevent further progression.
So you talked about you made some lifestyle changes over time. Which changes felt the most doable when you first started, and which ones made the biggest difference in how you feel?
Well, this was hard to measure, but I would say stopping NSAIDs was probably a great impact, which I would not have known without medical advice. Dealing with MS, I have pain from time to time, and I did use NSAIDs, but I've stopped that entirely. And that I could see a change, I think, in my blood work from that. But beyond that, I started attending to diet more closely. I did research online about chronic kidney disease and shifted my diet more to vegetarian-based diet. I do still eat meat, but rarely. I eat chicken breasts occasionally, and otherwise it's vegetarian-based. And then my total approach to health, which is how I've taken this on, it's not just chronic kidney disease, my general health. As you described, I exercise regularly. I'm very faithful to that. Yoga, I think, is real central to my health because it helps balance mental, physical, emotional, spiritual well-being. And I think the approach to this and all medical problems needs to be holistic. So, and I think for me, this is my experience, yoga keeps me connected to my body. I can't ignore my body when I'm aware of my body through my yoga practice. And I think that can apply for other people. It may not be yoga, but any kind of self-care through regular exercise can bring that same kind of attitude to health, prevention, problems. And then I added Renadil. And I would say that was an interesting experiment. I had lab work in the beginning, and over the next 6 months, I saw improvement. So I was already doing those other things. I felt like I had good sleep, good stress management, good exercise, good diet. But there were still some problems with my blood work. So I added Renadil and there was improvement. So that was the next piece to the puzzle, like Dr. Johnson described.
So yeah, you mentioned adding Renadil to your routine a few years ago. So what led you to try it, and how did you work that decision into conversations with your healthcare team?
Um, well, research online led me to discovering Renadil. I found a website of plant-based dietitians and I read articles there and Renadil was included there and it, how it is online. I went from one thing to another and learned more and more about that. But you ask about how I discussed it with my medical team. When I met with the nephrologist, I asked him if he thought probiotics would be beneficial for chronic kidney disease, that I was using Renadil, or I didn't say Renadil, I was taking probiotics. And he said, well, something like this. He said, well, it won't hurt, may not help unless it's Renadil. And I went, well, it is Renadil, so I must be onto something. He's read the research, obviously, and I believe in science, so I like research-based evidence.
Yeah. And I know, you talked about staying active with yoga, mainly walking, Pilates. What would you say to someone who wants to exercise but feels intimidated or doesn't know where to start?
You need to do something you love. And for me, it was yoga. Yoga's been a part of my life for many decades. That may not be everybody's cup of tea. A simple thing to start with would be walking. And my experience with my physical activity is it's very reinforcing. If I have a routine, and if I keep to my routine, I feel good. It gives structure to my life and my self-care. If I get thrown off from that routine, I get feedback that I'm missing that piece. So just start somewhere with something you can do. Anybody can walk to the mailbox and back. If you're not very mobile, just start with that. So I was a psychotherapist before I retired, and I used to encourage people who were wanting to get moving for various reasons to just walk to the mailbox and back. That's the first goal. And after that, maybe to the stop sign and back. Don't make your goals too big, too grand, something very doable so that you can feel good about it. You need victories every day and experiencing the feedback from your body will keep you moving forward with exercise.
We've heard a lot over the years that diet can be confusing for kidney patients. How did you figure out what works for you, especially when you shifted towards a more vegetarian diet?
Well, that was interesting. It's been a long and interesting process for me. So I had many years ago, I did that for the multiple sclerosis that was referenced that I live with. And a vegetarian-based diet was beneficial to me then. It was challenging, though, trying to feed my family. They did not want to eat that way. And so I was having health problems and trying to be a short order cook, and that was difficult. So I just did the best I could. I modified. I just modified. Perfection was not my goal. And so I had that background with that effort, but in more recent years, I don't have a family to feed and I can focus more on my health needs. And the one tip I would give anyone trying to shift away from a more carnivorous diet, if that's the way a person eats, is just find things that you like within the recommended sources of vegetarian nutrition. So In my case, I fix overnight oats every day. I eat cashews and peanuts. I'm allergic to tree nuts, so that's a source of protein for me. Um, and I like fruit, so I have fresh fruit sitting out every day. I make it easy. I think that's important. Have things already in the kitchen and make it easy, and have snacks sitting out or readily available in the fridge. And just don't make it too grand a shift. Do a little bit at a time.
And for patients considering, supplements like Renadil or other gut-focused options, what made you feel comfortable trying it? What should people think about before starting anything new?
Well, based on that research I told you about, I felt good about it. And then, of course, when my nephrologist reacted in the way he did, I had no concerns, and I had no side effects either, so I was not concerned about that. I, I think based on my experience, I would recommend someone considering Renadil as a supplement, um, to tell their doctor that they want to do that, get lab work before starting so you can see where you're at, and go back in 3 months and 6 months and see how it progresses. And that's kind of a time limited financial risk as well. So you commit to 6 months, you look at your lab work, get some objective feedback, and it's not a huge financial investment or time investment, not a risk. And that's where I would start. Again, small changes can make a huge difference. If it'll help you make changes that are doable if you just take a little bit at a time and get support from your doctors in the process.
Great. Deborah, thank you for walking us through your story. It's incredibly valuable to hear how patients navigate these changes over time and what makes the biggest difference in daily life. We appreciate you being part of the conversation today. So now let's bring back Dr. Johnson to the program as well. Our audience members were able to submit a question for the panelists as they registered for today's event. I'd now like to ask our panelists some of those questions. We're going to start with you, Dr. Johnson. You've written about the link between uric acid, sugar, and chronic disease. For patients who already monitor labs closely, are there specific tests or markers they should be asking their doctors about to better understand their metabolic health?
Yeah, thank you. Before I answer that, I just have to say, Deb, your testimonial was really powerful, and your recommendations were brilliant. And it was really great listening to your experience, and also the point of you know going slowly and taking your time to look for the benefits of Renadil, and in general the whole decision process that you went through to try to regain back your health. And it sounds like you really have done it. So congratulations. Um, so Jerome, yes, I do write a lot about sugar. I've performed many studies in animals and in humans, and I'm convinced that sugar is not just an empty calorie. It's not just an extra calorie but it actually plays a role in metabolic disease. It plays a role in diabetes. It plays a role in high blood pressure. It plays a role in kidney disease. And I can make kidney disease worse in animals by giving them the sugar. And for sure, it turns out that sugar contains two sugars, actually. There's glucose and fructose, and they're combined together to make sugar. And high fructose corn syrup is also a combination of these two sugars. And my work really suggests that both of them play a role in all these metabolic diseases that include Alzheimer's disease and include cancers. And sugars can feed cancers. And it's really a scary world when you start looking at all the things that they do. Fructose appears to be the worst of the two, but if you eat a lot of glucose, it starts being converted to fructose in your body. We recently even showed that drinking alcohol generates sugar in your body and fructose in your body. And if you block the fructose, you can block liver disease from alcohol. So sugar is at the root of so many issues. High fructose corn syrup. And there's being a trend. We used to focus on diets. We would say, well, high protein diets are bad, but so protein restrict. But now we know that if we restrict protein too much, people will get malnourished. It's not good for the muscle and the brain and everything. So now we backed off on restricting protein to the extent we used to. And now it's becoming more and more apparent that people need to restrict the soft drinks and the cakes. That's not to say you can't ever eat a cake. I do on my birthday. And nature wants us to be fat. It's absolutely true. We are driven to like sweets, but you can have a big impact by cutting back on sugary foods and especially liquid sugar. And then you said to me, well, what are the markers that we should look for? Well, the obvious markers are things like obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, high blood pressure. A lot of these can be tracked back to excess sugar. So you don't need a blood test. If you are pre-diabetic, you're eating or making too much sugar. So you don't need to go and draw blood. But if you do want to draw a blood test, you want to know if you have the metabolic syndrome. You want to know what your cholesterol and lipids are, your triglycerides. You can ask your doctor to measure an insulin level when you're fasting. And uric acid is actually part of this pathway. Sugar makes uric acid, so measuring that is also helpful. All those things are helpful, but looking in the mirror is probably the best. Are you gaining weight? Are you developing? Do you have evidence of being pre-diabetic? And your doctor can tell you that. So that's my answer. Long answer, sorry.
No problem at all. So our next question is actually for Deborah. So Deborah, were there any conversations with your nephrologist about Renadil, about how Renadil might fit alongside your other treatments or lifestyle changes?
I wish I could say there was more discussion, but there wasn't. Even working with a nephrologist, just getting that endorsement of his awareness of the research was the amount of support I got from him around Renadil. His attitude was it was worth trying and there would not be any harm. It seemed he didn't want to make any promises that could not deliver. So it was self-motivated is what I would say to someone considering it. This is a situation where you really have to take your health in your own hands, be an advocate for yourself. I would say I have said to so many friends and family members, don't expect a doctor to take care of your prevention. Do it yourself. You've got to do it yourself. And this is there are, I know, some acute problems with kidney disease, but my understanding is most kind of creep up on people. So we need to pay attention for ourselves and don't wait until it's too far along. So don't wait for your nephrologist to hold your hand through your decisions on how you're going to prevent progression.
All right. Thank you. Our next question will go to Dr. Johnson. So you mentioned the role of fructose and sugar in metabolic health. For kidney patients, how much of a difference can reducing sugar actually make?
So it can help blood pressure. There are studies showing that if you reduce sugar intake, that your blood pressure becomes easier to manage. I've actually been involved in some studies like that. Also, reducing sugar can improve sleep patterns, including in dialysis patients. And also, reducing sugar is clearly been shown to help insulin resistance. And also, we found that in animals that sugar could really cause kidney disease on its own, but could also exacerbate kidney disease. And so reducing sugar probably can benefit kidney disease. There's an epidemiologic association of sugar intake with things like increased urinary protein and kidney damage by histologic studies. So I would say there's some real benefit, and there's actually, we've submitted a paper showing that keto diets may actually be beneficial in diabetic patients with kidney disease. The paper's under review, and once it's published, you may want me to come back, or we could have the first author come back and talk about it. But there is evidence that there are other ways to potentially help kidney disease that could be a little more drastic in terms of lifestyle, like a keto diet, which is quite surprising that it might slow kidney progression, even though the protein content is often a little high. So anyway, but at this point in time, that's not been peer reviewed yet and published, but I would just say, try to cut back on anything with liquid sugar. And that's, like soft drinks, those kinds of things. Probably the number one. Apple juice is another one. Power drinks. Don't add sugar to your coffee. Don't add sugar to your tea. Try to cut it out. Liquid sugar seems to be worse than sugar in foods, and that's because when you eat sugar in foods, there's all these foods that help slow the absorption, especially if there's fiber in the food. Increasing fiber intake is good too because of that. So there's a lot we can do.
So thank you for that, and thank you for the offer to come back with additional information. This next question is for Deborah. For someone who's unsure about trying Renadil, what would you tell them about your experience, both the benefits and anything you wish you had known beforehand?
Well, I can honestly say I've had no negative effects that I'm aware of. And it's good for your digestion. Probiotics, aside from the kidney effect, it's good for digestion. So that's a bonus. And it's just been a positive experience. And as I've alluded to, I've looked at the lab work to get my feedback about the progress or the benefit of Renadil directly on my kidney function. And I'm convinced that it is enhancing my strategies. So I feel good taking it, and I don't have any negative effects, and the lab work reinforces my choice.
Thank you, Deborah. We have one last question for Dr. Johnson. Some people feel overwhelmed by diet changes. If a patient wanted to focus on just one or two adjustments that have the biggest impact, what would you suggest?
I would say, in patients with chronic kidney disease, both salt and sugar, you don't want to eat a lot of salt and you don't want to eat a lot of sugar. Those two things, I know I'm supposed to only say one, but those two things will have a big positive impact. And then you can talk to your doctor about, but drinking water, more water is a very good move. What I recommend is you get a glass of water with each meal and you put it in front of you and you drink that glass of water at the meal and then try to drink one in between. Now, if you're on dialysis and you make no urine at all, you may have problem with weight gain between dialyses that's from fluid. So the drinking of all that water is not something I recommend if you have no kidney function at all and you're being dialyzed. But if you are a chronic kidney disease patient or a transplant patient, drinking more water probably is going to be beneficial for you. But discuss it with your doctor.
Thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your time, expertise, and personal experiences with us today. We appreciate you both spending time with us and sharing your perspectives. If anyone watching has additional questions for our speakers or about today's webinar that we were unable to get to, please email us at info@aakp.org, noting the webinar title and the email subject line. In closing, if you are not already a member of AAKP, we encourage you to join. AAKP offers free membership to patients and their family members, as well as living kidney donors. To become a free member, join online at aakp.org/join or by phone at 1-800-749-2257. To receive all the benefits of membership, please be sure to include your email address when signing up. As an AAKP member, you will be notified about all of AAKP's upcoming events, the latest in our educational program series, and when opportunities arise where your opinions and experiences are needed to help inform innovation, advance care, and make a meaningful impact to improve lives. We encourage you to respond to our flash surveys and other engagement opportunities to help us elevate the independent patient voice and change status quo kidney care. You will also receive a digital subscription to our bi-monthly magazine, AAKP Renal Life, and can select to receive any of our 5 different electronic newsletters, all for just signing up. We also invite you to check our blog and read some great articles and patient profile stories, and follow us on social media for all the latest news and to keep up on what's trending. AAKP is dedicated to helping kidney patients across the disease spectrum understand their condition and take control of their health care. We are proud to offer a variety of resources for both patients and care partners. By visiting our webpage at aakp.org and clicking on the AAKP store button at the top of the homepage, you'll find a variety of educational brochures and online tools to order or download free of charge, including titles such as AAKP Nutrition Counter, a reference guide for kidney patients, available in English and Spanish. And we have the AAKP Understanding Food Nutrition Facts Label brochure. Did you know AAKP created a recipe series to support people living with kidney disease? It's called AAKP Delicious, and it features more than 100 kidney-friendly recipes designed to help you cook healthy, great tasting meals that fit your dietary needs, whether you're a patient or a care partner looking to take a more active role in your nutrition. Some of the recipes also come with short on-demand cooking demos, so you can follow along step by step in your own kitchen. You can always adjust ingredients to match your specific dietary requirements, and your renal dietitian is the best resource if you have questions about how to work these recipes into your daily routine. You can purchase all 8 editions of AAKP Delicious and start building your collection today. And finally, check out our bit.ly/AAKP on demand to watch inspiring presentations from past events and explore even more great educational content on our AAKP YouTube channel at bit.ly/AAKP YouTube. We would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our webinar speakers, Dr. Richard Johnson and Deborah Miller, for graciously participating in today's HealthLine Innovator event. Their expertise and insights greatly enriched the discussion and provided valuable information. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to you joining us for another great HealthLine event.